Tropical cyclone signals are building near the Queensland coastline, multiple low-pressure systems developing, heavy rainfall potential, strong wind shear. That's what we're reanalysing today. I've gone through the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, examined the access model, compared it with the GFS and European models, and looked at what is actually happening on the ground right now. There is a complex pattern setting up across the Coral Sea and Northern Australia, and it is worth understanding what is driving this and what it means for different parts of Queensland over the coming days. Right now across Queensland, conditions vary significantly depending on where you are. Up around Mount Carbine in far north Queensland, they hit 30 degrees by 10:30 this morning with 85% humidity. Minimum overnight was 26 degrees. They copped an hour of heavy rain last night. That's typical wet season conditions for that part of the world. Down on the Gold Coast, Sunday's forecast is hitting 35 degrees. That is a scorcher for the coast. The heat and humidity combination is building across southeast Queensland. Around Ipswich and Petrie, just north of Brisbane, conditions have been dry. They crying out for decent rain. One comment mentioned needing 100 millimetres to sort out the pool. That gives you an idea of how dry it's been in parts of southeast Queensland, despite the wet season technically being underway further north. Townsville had some action on Saturday. Lightning hit a transformer, knocked out power in parts of the city. The thunderclap was loud enough to send pets running for cover. That's the kind of instability we are dealing with across the tropics right now. So that S, where we're restarting from. Now let S look at what S developing and why these tropical cyclone signals are worth paying attention to. The key feature here is not one system, but multiple low pressure centres developing across the Coral Sea and the Northern Australian region. We've got what meteorologists call a monsoon trough extending across the top end and into the Coral Sea. This is a broad area of low pressure that acts as a breeding ground for tropical lows and potentially tropical cyclones. When you examine the synapse charts from the Bureau, you can see several areas of interest. There is a low-pressure system positioned northeast of Townsville, another one developing further east in the Coral Sea, and the monsoon trough itself is active across the Northern Territory and Cape York Peninsula. Now here is what matters for tropical cyclone development. You need several ingredients. Warm sea surface temperatures, check. We've got that across the Coral Sea and the Gulf of Carpentaria. Low wind shear, that's the critical one right now. High humidity through the mid-levels of the atmosphere, we've got that. And you need some sort of trigger mechanism to get the low-pressure system organised. The access model, which is the Bureau of Meteorology's main forecasting tool, is showing these low-pressure systems persisting through the next 5 to 7 days. The GFS model out of the United States shows similar positioning. The European model, which often has good skill with tropical systems, is indicating that at least one of these lows has potential to strengthen. But here is the complicating factor, and this is where we need to be careful about jumping to conclusions. Wind shear. That is the change in wind speed or direction with height. Strong wind shear tears apart tropical systems before they can organise. Light wind shear allows them to intensify. Right now, wind shear across the region is moderate, not high enough to completely suppress development, but not low enough to guarantee rapid intensification either. The models are showing this shear pattern shifting over the next few days. If shear decreases, as some models suggest, we could see one or more of these lows strengthen into tropical cyclones. If shear remains where it is or increases, they'll likely stay as weak tropical lows. This is why several people in the comments are asking about wind shear and whether it might change for southeast Queensland. That's the right question to ask. The answer is it is marginal right now. The Bureau gives these systems a medium chance of development over the next few days. Medium means somewhere between 20 and 50% probability. Not certain, but not dismissible either. Let me put this in historical context for a moment. We're in the heart of cyclone season. November through April is when tropical cyclones form in Australian waters. January typically sees about 2 cyclones form in the Australian region. Some years more, some years less. Many of you remember Cyclone Yasi, February 2011, Category 5 system that crossed the coast near Mission Beach. Wind gusts up to 285 kilometres per hour, caused massive damage across North Queensland. Before that, Cyclone Larry in March 2006, another Category 5 that devastated Innisfail. The current systems we re-monitoring are nowhere near that level of organisation or intensity right now. They are tropical lows, maybe reaching tropical cyclone strength if conditions align. Even if they do intensify, the most likely scenario based on current modelling is Category 1 or 2, not the monsters like Yasi or Larry, but that doesn't mean we ignore them. Even a Category 1 cyclone brings significant impacts: heavy rainfall, damaging wind gusts, coastal flooding, storm surge, and it is the rainfall that's often the biggest story with these systems. Let us break this down by region because the impacts vary significantly depending on where you are in Queensland, far north Queensland, from Cooktown north to Cape York. You are already in the thick of it. The monsoon trough is active. You are seeing daily thunderstorms, periods of heavy rain, humid and uncomfortable conditions. That's not changing. If anything, rainfall intensifies mid to late week as one of these lows potentially moves closer to the coast. The Bureau S rainfall forecasts for far north Queensland are showing totals of 100 to 200 millimetres over the next 7 days. Some areas, particularly elevated regions and anywhere that cops repeated thunderstorms, could see 300 millimetres or more. That is significant rainfall. For those in places like Cairns, Cooktown, Waipa, you know the drill. Monsoon season means dealing with this weather. Check your property drainage. Secure anything that could blow around if winds pick up. Keep an eye on creek and river levels because this much rain causes localised flooding. North Queensland, Townsville, south to about Mackay, you're in an interesting position. You're close enough to the tropics to get affected by these systems, but the impacts depend heavily on the exact track they take. Townsville has already had some storm activity, as we mentioned earlier. That continues. Scattered to widespread showers and thunderstorms through the week. Rainfall totals less than further north, probably 50 to 150 millimetres, but still decent falls. If one of these lows tracks southwest toward the coast, Townsville and surrounds could be looking at heavier totals. If they stay offshore or track more westward into the Gulf, you'll see less impact. Right now, the models aren't in perfect agreement on track, which tells you this is still evolving. Someone asked whether these lows could drag enough moisture in to produce heavy rain in Townsville. The answer is yes, they could. Whether they will depends on positioning and intensity. A stronger, closer system means more rainfall. A weaker, further system means less. Central Queensland, Mackay, down to about Rockhampton and Gladstone, you're on the southern fringe of the tropical influence. You will see increased shower and thunderstorm activity, particularly mid to late week. The further south you are, the less direct impact you are likely to see from these tropical lows. Gladstone area, someone mentioned they saw aurora down south around 9 p.m. recently. Beautiful stuff. That is completely separate from this weather pattern, obviously, but it speaks to how active things are globally right now with solar weather as well as our earthly weather. For central Queensland, expect showery conditions, possible thunderstorms, but probably not the sustained heavy rain that further north will experience unless a system tracks directly over you. 50 to 100 millimetres over the next week is realistic. Southeast Queensland, this is where the uncertainty increases. Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, you're well south of where these tropical systems are currently positioned. Your weather over the next few days is more about local heating, sea breezes and afternoon storms rather than organised tropical systems. The forecast for Sunday on the Gold Coast is 35 degrees. That is hot, uncomfortable. Brisbane similar, low to mid-30s, humid conditions. Afternoon storms are possible, particularly Sunday and Monday, driven by that heat and moisture. Now here, where it gets interesting for southeast Queensland. Later in the week, there's potential for a trough to extend south from the tropical activity. If that happens, and if enough moisture gets pulled down, you could finally see some decent rainfall. Petrie and Ipswich, where people are waiting for rain, this trough is your best chance. But I'm not going to promise anything. The models are inconsistent on how far south that moisture extends. The Access model has the trough reaching southeast Queensland by Thursday or Friday. The European model is less enthusiastic. Until we see better agreement, treat any significant rainfall for southeast Queensland as possible but not certain. Someone mentioned not wanting a repeat of that November storm on Monday. Fair concern. November brought some severe storms to parts of southeast Queensland. The pattern setting up for Monday shows potential for afternoon storms, but right now it doesn't look as severe as what you saw in November. Shear levels are different. The broader pattern is different. That said, any storm in this heat and humidity can produce heavy rainfall, lightning, localised flooding. Don T underestimate afternoon storms just because they not part of a tropical cyclone. Keep an eye on the Bureau's severe weather warnings. Let us talk about wind. If one of these tropical lows does intensify to cyclone strength, wind becomes a major consideration. A Category 1 cyclone has wind gusts up to 125 kilometres per hour. Category 2 up to 170. That S strong enough to cause damage. Right now, none of these systems have organised circulation strong enough to produce cyclone force winds. If that changes, the Bureau will issue tropical cyclone warnings with plenty of lead time. For now, the main wind concern is thunderstorm winds. Gusts of 60 to 80 kilometres per hour are possible with stronger storms, particularly in far north and North Queensland. Marine conditions are already deteriorating. If you on the water anywhere from Cape York down to about Mackay, conditions are rough. Seas building to 3 to 4 metres in the Coral Sea. Strong wind warnings are current for several coastal waters areas. Small craft should stay in port. Commercial vessels need to pay attention to forecasts and warnings. The Gulf of Carpentaria is also active. Seas building there as well. If you're refishing the Gulf or working on platforms, conditions are deteriorating through the week. For coastal flooding and storm surge, this becomes relevant if a tropical cyclone develops and approaches the coast. Even without a cyclone, king tides combined with onshore winds can cause minor coastal flooding. Check the Bureau S-tide predictions and add half a metre to a metre if you are in an area prone to inundation. Now let's address fire danger, because even with all this tropical moisture, parts of Queensland still have fire concerns. Southern and inland Queensland, where it's been drier, still have elevated fire danger ratings on hot, windy days. Sunday and Monday, with temperatures in the mid-30s and westerly winds ahead of any storm activity, fire danger is a concern for inland areas. If you in the Darling Downs, Western Queensland, Central Highlands, check the fire danger rating each day. On severe or extreme days, be extremely careful with anything that could start a fire. Total fire bans may be declared for some areas. Check the Queensland Fire and Emergency Services website or the Rural Fire Service for your area. Preparation. What should you actually be doing? This depends on where you are. Far North Queensland and North Queensland in the direct path of these systems. Standard wet season preparation applies. Clear gutters and drains. Trim any overhanging branches that could come down in strong winds. Secure outdoor furniture, trampolines, anything that could blow around. Stock up on essentials. Not panic buying, just sensible preparation. If you live remotely and could be cut off by flooding, make sure you've got enough food, water, medication for a week or more. Charge devices, have torches and batteries ready. If power goes out like it did in parts of Townsville on Saturday, you'll want those basics sorted. If you are in a flood-prone area and heavy rain is forecast, know your evacuation route. If it's flooded, forget it. Never drive through floodwater. 50% of flood deaths happen in vehicles. Keep monitoring the Bureau of Meteorology website. They'll update forecasts and warnings at least twice daily, more often if a system intensifies. Download the Bomb Weather app if you haven't already. Set up warnings for your area. For those in southeast Queensland waiting for rain, your time might come later in the week. But until that trough materialises and brings moisture south, Don T bank on it. If it does rain, it'll likely come as thunderstorms, meaning localised heavy falls. Some areas will flood, others a street away stay dry. That's the nature of storm-driven rainfall. Check your property before storms hit. Clean those gutters. Make sure downpipes are clear. If you've got a pool that needs filling, you might get lucky, but 100 millimetres in one hit from a thunderstorm often means most of it runs off rather than soaking in gradually. For livestock and property owners in rural areas, this is about managing mud and water. Paddocks in North Queensland are going to be saturated. Move stock to higher ground if flooding is possible. Check fences because heavy rain undermines fence posts. If you're recropping, this rainfall could be beneficial or detrimental depending on crop stage and how much falls. Too much at the wrong time causes as many problems as too little. Health considerations, temperature swings, high humidity, pressure changes, all of this affects people. The comments mentioned people being crook for weeks with flu, headaches, sinus issues. That S common during unsettled weather patterns. Stay hydrated in the heat. Use air conditioning or fans if you have them. Check on elderly neighbours, particularly if they don't have cooling. Heat stress is serious, especially for older people and anyone with heart conditions. If you're resensitive to pressure changes, you are probably already feeling it. Migraines, joint pain, all of that tends to flare up when low pressure systems are nearby. Not much you can do except manage symptoms and know it's temporary. Looking further ahead, beyond this week, the pattern stays active. We only in late January. Cyclone season runs through to April. Even if these current systems develop into major cyclones, there will be more. The ocean temperatures are warm. The monsoon trough will remain active on and off for months yet. Historically, February and March are peak months for cyclone activity in Australian waters. The systems that form later in the season often have more time over warm water to intensify. Cyclone Yasi was a February system. Cyclone Larry was March. I'm not forecasting any specific events that far ahead. Models don't have useful skill beyond 7 to 10 days for these features. But understanding the seasonal pattern helps with longer-term planning. If you're in cyclone-prone areas, now is the time to have your cyclone plan sorted, not when a Category 4 is bearing down on you. Now, when there is no immediate threat, sit down and work out your plan. Where would you go if you needed to evacuate? Do you have friends or family inland you could stay with? What would you take? Documents, photos, medications, essentials? What would you leave behind? You can take everything. If you are staying and defending property, is your house rated for cyclonic winds? Do you have shutters or can you board up windows? Many newer houses in North Queensland are built to cyclone standards. Older houses might not be. Know what category rating means. Category 1 or 2 well-built houses generally withstand them. Category 3, moderate damage is possible. Category 4 or 5, severe damage, likely even to well-built structures. At that point, evacuation is the only safe option. The Bureau of Meteorology will issue watches and warnings well ahead of any cyclone impact. A cyclone watch means cyclone force winds are possible within 48 hours. A cyclone warning means they re-expected within 24 hours. That's your timeline to complete preparation or evacuate. For this current situation, we re-not at watch or warning stage. We re at awareness and monitoring stage. These are systems with potential, not immediate threats. Let me summarise where things stand. Multiple tropical lows developing across the Coral Sea and northern Australian waters. The monsoon trough is active. We've got the ingredients for tropical cyclone development, but wind shear is the critical factor determining whether these lows intensify. Far North Queensland and North Queensland can expect continued wet season conditions. Heavy rainfall likely. Thunderstorms. Flooding possible in prone areas. Totals of 100 to 300 millimetres over the next week depending on location. Central Queensland seeing increased shower activity. Less organised than further north, but still decent rainfall possible. South East Queensland, the story is heat and humidity with afternoon storms. Potential for a trough to bring heavier rain later in the week, but that is uncertain right now. This pattern stays active for the foreseeable future. We in the heart of the wet season. More systems will develop. Keep monitoring forecasts and warnings. This is not a time for panic. It is a time for appropriate preparation and paying attention. UV dealt with wet seasons before. You know how this works. The difference this year is is we've got multiple systems to watch rather than one clear-cut scenario. Check the Bureau of Meteorology website at least daily. Watch for any changes in forecast confidence or intensity predictions. If warnings are issued, take them seriously. For those waiting for rain in the southeast, patience. Your turn might come this week or it might be another week or two. When it does come, it'll likely be hit and miss with storms rather than steady widespread rain. For those already in the wet up north, stay safe. Don to take unnecessary risks. Floodwater is dangerous. Swollen creeks and rivers can rise quickly. Give them a wide berth. That is where things stand. I'll continue monitoring this pattern and update as the situation develops. If there are significant changes, if one of these lows does intensify, if the wind shear pattern shifts, I'll cover that. In the meantime, sort out your preparation, keep an eye on the sky and the Bureau S forecasts, and make smart decisions. This weather pattern demands respect, but it's manageable if you re-prepared.